You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
What is up, Internet? What is up, Producer Kyle? How's it going?
Nothing. I just noticed something with the animation of the opening that I don't like, but I can't fix it because the services we use to get some of those graphics are no longer existent. And so I'm just going to have to deal.
I think I read about one of the... Is it because somebody passed away?
Yeah.
That's really sad. I was actually... So it's funny. For those behind the scenes here, little peek behind the curtain, there's some assets we use that are, nice services that you can go in and use things for your channel, and you pay for the services and you get access to nice little assets. Unfortunately, one of the people that's responsible for one of those services passed away, and they had to shut down that service. So it's really unfortunate for obvious reasons, and too bad for a lot of practical reasons on top of that.
You mean the thousands and thousands of dollars I'm out? Yeah.
Yes, for the lifetime licenses.
Well, and the stuff that wasn't lifetime, that was purchased once and you can use it forever.
Yeah.
That I purchased. Like, it wasn't like I was subscribing. It was,
Yeah, it's one of those things too where they didn't let people go in and download all the assets and everything.
Right, they didn't let you know they didn't let us know they were shutting down.
Yeah. So there's also
anyway, you might see a new opener for this stuff, and it'll be because I had to make new ones.
I think, you know what? It feels like the winds of change are upon us anyway. Speaking of the winds of change, and speaking of peeling back the curtain.
Have you been downwind for me? Is that why you're saying winds of change? Like, have you been...
Very downwind, several states away.
Yeah.
So look, everybody, if you're watching the show, the thumbnail, Marvel versus DC, here's how it works. We pick our topics, usually a few weeks out. We dive into them, kind of leading up to those shows. Usually we have some conversations in the background. Sometimes we intentionally don't, because I think we kind of want to go in cold and not really have had the conversations that we're going to have. We want to have those live interactions, right? Something about this topic, the way that it was hitting us, what this was going to be, and it still might happen, but maybe in a different format, is kind of a series of shows where we're going to talk about things that are cool to talk about, that kind of nerd warfare that happens in every local comic shop between Marvel fans and DC fans, and which one's better and all that kind of stuff. And that still could happen. Absolutely probably will at some point. Today we were going to discuss superheroes and how Marvel's heroes compares to DC heroes. We're going to do villains and a few other topics too. It just wasn't hitting us right though. As we were trying to get this show wrapped up in the production phase, just wasn't feeling right. And you know what we did feel like doing? We felt like coming on live and talking off the top of the dome, just off the cuff, and having a conversation. Does that sound good to you, Kyle?
Well, it's what there is, so it has to. What really sounds good to me is going back home and avoiding the freezing rain that is happening outside of my studio, and watching The Big Bang Theory with a pillow up around my face. But if I do that, I don't get to talk to all of you fine people, and that would be a bummer. So,
I mean, if it helps,
I'm good with the trade-off.
We could all just sing like "Soft Kitty, Warm Kitty, Little Ball of Fur" for you. We could just.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Have a kumbaya moment.
No,
I'll throw in a couple bazingas every once in a while if you start to hear the rain in the background.
No, we're good. And I will say to everybody, I want you guys to understand, I love being here with Bronze and with you guys and talking all the time. But we have a great big fancy event coming this weekend called the EXP Expo. And there's a lot still to get together for the EXP Expo. So my brain has been almost solely focused on one of two topics since about Thursday. There's a new candy store in my town. Don't go to the candy store and spend my entire paycheck. And figure out the EXP Expo. Those are the two things I've thought since like Thursday. And the reason I say it about the candy stores is because as a diabetic kid, that's like knowing where your drug dealer lives. Like, it's bad to know that it's there.
After you've gone sober.
Right. It's
Or even
bad to know
before,
that it's there. Because, like, yeah. Like, I bought this there the other day, Diet Dad's root beer. I hadn't seen a Diet Dad's root beer in like 15 years.
Oh, man. Diet Dad's root beer.
Yeah. Wasn't as good as I remember, but you know how hard it is to find Diet root beer in a glass bottle? It's impossible.
That's a really good point. And I do prefer stuff like soda out of a glass bottle for sure.
Right. Like, so anyway, so I've had two thoughts, that and the EXP Expo. So, what up, buddy? What up, John? It's like Phil.
We got Psycho Phil in the house.
Van-
And some other people watching.
Joel Schugert is over on the Instagram.
Cool
for
name.
those of you, well, Joel used to work for me when I had my store. And now he is like the little brother of our group because he's like 10 years younger than the oldest of us. Or than the youngest of the rest of the crew. So like he's like the little brother of the group. We also have Krakoom Comics and Jay.
What's up, Jay? What's up, Krakoom? So, you know what? I think that we're gonna be kind of free spitting here a little bit from the dome, and I think that's a good thing. I think we actually needed an episode like this, to be honest. And if you're watching, hey, it's a really great opportunity to steer the conversation how you want us to move. Sometimes you guys hear the topic and you come in because you want to hear us talk about it. And sometimes people want to say, yeah, but actually.
Right. And the phone line is open. If you want to call in and tell us what to talk about, you can do that. 567-318-6507. 567-318-6507.
Pick up the phone. As a child that grew up in the 90s with late night weird USA TV, that is emblazoned in my mind.
Thinking, call me maybe.
A little more 2000s, a little more current.
Mainly because, did you know that "Call Me Maybe" and "Head Like a Hole" are the same song?
No.
The exact same notes and chord progressions.
Really?
So you take the music from "Head Like a Hole" and sing "Call Me Maybe" over it, and vice versa. You can take the music from "Call Me Maybe" and sing "Head Like a Hole" over it.
That stuff always weird. Like, you know, there's a couple of comedy acts, like musical comedy acts that have done the.
You mean the Axis of Awesome and the four chord
Axis
song?
of Awesome is very infamous for it. Yeah, exactly. And there's a few others I've seen like that have attempted the same thing, or kind of one of those medley mashup kind of things.
Well, it's ironically Pac Bell's Canon in D is like 60% of all songs.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's one of those things that, like, as somebody who's I took choir in middle school and high school, and you know, like audition choirs and stuff, not just the open choir, and that was what I got into. But I am not a very musical person, so when people blow my mind with musical theory type stuff like that, it really literally pretty much blows my mind, because I just can't wrap my head around those being the same thing until I hear it, and I'm like, oh, it's the same thing.
Well, you know, about a third of the music we use here on The Experience I wrote, right?
You actually wrote it? I did not know. So I knew you were a musician. I didn't know that though. Well,
like the minute and a half countdown we were at the top of every show.
Yeah.
So no, I was in choir and stuff. John Stout.
You play instruments.
John Stout. Are we talking about Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, or what was the guy before it? Art Bell? Yeah, are we talking Coast to Coast AM? The Chupacabra Ate My Baby?
Yeah, I remember.
Because I have great Art Bell stories from working overnights at an AM radio station that aired that, and the truckers would call into our radio station because they thought it was like local programming.
Okay.
And so I would just talk to him on the phone for like a half hour, 40 minutes, because I didn't have anything to do.
So you're just repeating the radio broadcast, basically, right?
No, they would. So that show was nationally syndicated. So it generated from Las Vegas and went out on the network.
Right.
So all I had to do was make sure it started. And then I had nothing to do for 5 hours except make sure we stayed on the air. And if there was weather, do weather stuff. But nothing to do for 5 hours until they were done. So when these people would call in the middle of the night, and by a lot of them were drunk out of their skulls. Like, let's be real.
Yes.
would call in and want to talk to George Norrie or Art Bell or whoever, I would be like, well, you can't, but you could talk to me. And so I would talk to these guys and hear their crazy stories about seeing aliens while they were on a long haul, and they'd had 16 no doses and a monster. And I'm like, I don't think you saw aliens. I think you were hallucinating, you know? So no,
fun.
I was in choir from the time I was in the 3rd grade. And then I was in the Toledo area youth chorus and the Toledo Symphony Chorus and all of the audition things around here. I've done musical theater. I've trained in improv, done radio. I've been in bands since I was 14. So, hell,
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Hold on.
This lives right next to my desk in my studio.
Oh, right on.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't have an amp here for it though, which is super fun.
I mean, like, can't you like plug into some equipment you have there and broadcast it though, or something? Or do you actually need an amp?
I have a USB jack
Yeah.
that plugs into the computer so I can record it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have I couldn't plug it in right now and play for you, which is funny.
All right. Well, here's and this is a incredibly hard question to answer to the point where you could call it a loaded question.
Okay.
First off, do you have a favorite genre of music?
Yes.
If you had to pick one. Okay, what is it?
I'm going to answer with the most generic answer, and that is rock.
Perfect. Okay.
But the less generic answer is, depending on my mood, I tend to veer towards punk. So I came up in the music industry with Bad Religion and Motion City Soundtrack and some of the, the early pop punk groups. But then as I progressed in the business, I worked with groups like Bare Naked Ladies and Great Big Sea and some of these other bands. So that brought me into this kind of alt and dad rock kind of thing. So I love dad rock as well.
Okay. Man, Bad Religion is one of the acts that I absolutely regret I haven't seen them live. I've seen a lot of, Pennywise and a lot of stuff in that arena, but Bad Religion is a band that I, for some reason, didn't get into until later than a lot of the stuff. And I went to a lot of like Warped Tour play. That's not the set I would prefer to see them in, because I like longer sets than the half-hour sets you get at Warped Tour. But I would have loved to have seen Bad Religion, and I don't even know if they're still touring, but I hope I can still make that happen.
Yeah, no, I saw them 116 nights in a row.
Damn.
Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah.
Favorite band of all time is Rush.
Okay, that's where I was going to go next, but I wanted to see if there was even some people. It's like, hey, I can't answer that question. It depends on the day, and that's fine too. By the way, if it depends on the day, I don't mind hearing that.
Full spectrum. The first band I was ever in was a Weird Al cover band.
A Weird Al cover band.
Yes. So
just covering his original stuff, or covering because covers?
Almost covering exclusively the parodies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting Steve Miller story, Pastor Michael. One of my jobs before the experience was I did live sound for concert venues here in town. And Steve Miller came to town and he played our zoo, which was super fun. So he comes out and we do sound check and everything's great. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. Comes out for the show and he starts the show off with Jet Airliner, but he's playing it like in the wrong key and slow, and he's not singing it well. And I'm going, oh no, did something happen to Steve Miller backstage? And you start to see the crowd start to get worried. And he just sets his guitar down and goes, I'm just effing with you. And he grabs a guitar and he starts playing it. It sounds just like the record. Like, it was perfect. Like, it was one of those things, as you could tell that he was trying to make it fun for himself by trolling the audience a little bit.
Yeah, you figure like some of these acts, they go up so much that eventually they got to try some new stuff. And it sucks, for somebody like me, like let's say the one time I go see Bad Religion or something like that, and they decide we're tired of playing all our hits. And, if I really want to hear like boot stamping on a human face or something like that, they don't play it. I'm going to be irritated, whatever, or you go to see, any of these classic bands and they don't play their hits. Like there's almost this movement among huge artists to not play their big single, some kind of weird rebellious act. And And I get it, but also, man, if it's the one time you shelled out to go see those artists, you just, you'd like to see, even if they do a slightly different version of it or something.
Well, the bands the thing I like now to do with concerts is to go see bands who are playing a whole record.
Yeah.
So like I actually went out to Red Rocks to see Counting Crows.
Okay.
Play August and Everything After end to end in order. Which is just a cool, like, fun way to do it, right? Like it's you know what you're gonna get. It's not just play the hits, it's you're playing this record that means something to me. And I saw Blessed Union of Souls play their first record end to end. And so I like doing that, right? It's this idea of going to hear a certain thing, but then you have like, there's two different kinds of tours, right? There's a tour because you got to make the bills, and there's a tour in support of a record.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get to a certain point, you're just touring to pay your bills. Like one of my good friends, Edwin McCain. He only tours during the summer. He's home all winter. Right. And so he'll go out and he'll play a bunch of dates during the summer. And then John Stout, where did you see that show? I saw that show in Detroit. But he goes out during the summer, pays the bills, plays his hits, and then comes back. He's not supporting a record. Whereas you go to see, I'm trying to think of a modern act that's out working right now. You go to see like a Maroon 5 or whatever, they're supporting a record. So they got to play songs off that record because they're trying to sell the record. All right. John, I saw that show in Detroit at Joe Louis Arena.
So that's funny you mentioned Maroon 5. It's so funny. I probably saw one of their first shows after whatever their first single was. I can't remember now. And I got free tickets to a show at the Roseland Theater in Portland, Oregon. Gavin DeGraw opened. And saw Maroon 5 play. And it's weird to think of Maroon 5 now. And whatever you think about Maroon 5 now, that's fine. But before they were famous, quote unquote, when they were, just starting to get radio play, just starting to headline a small venue in a medium-sized city, it was really funny, like just watching the crowd reaction to Maroon 5, because you could tell, like, okay, ladies are super into this, guys are just kind of like, going along with it, and then knowing what they've become now, and the voice and all that stuff with the what's his face. I always want to call him Adam Devine, but it's Adam Levine, right?
Yeah, Adam. Yeah, Levine. What up, Danny Boy McCoy? Donnie Boy McCoy collects over on Instagram. How's it going, man? We're good. We're just off the cuff tonight. So if you have ideas, let me know.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
If you have something you want to talk about, throw it in the comments.
Meanwhile, I'm like just over here just trying to figure out how come my camera looks so washed out on StreamYard when it looks fine on my end in OBS. That's bothering me.
That's weird. No, so Buddy's first show was the Nuge. So here's the problem with the Nuge is that he's from not far from here. So like he'll play every rib festival and no?
I don't know what that means really, Yabab, but I will speak for myself, maybe.
I just feel like an MMA edit means that I'm going to have to face a Brock Lesnar type, and I just don't need a knee to the face right now. I got enough.
I think it means we would, but so I think I know what an MMA edit is. I don't think I know how I would fit into one.
So yeah, no, the problem with Ted Nugent is that one, he never shuts up about politics on stage anymore. But two, I'm like, shut up and play Stranglehold. Shut up and play Cat Scratch Fever. I don't know any MMA fighters except for Brock Lesnar, and I only know him because he lost to the tribal chief Roman Reigns. And and he was the 1 in 30 and 31 and 1 with the Undertaker.
Wait, important follow-up question. What is some badass music? Let's define what some badass music would sound like, and then maybe we'll talk.
No, so this is the thing, right? Like, I think Ted is super fun, but when you've seen him a quadrillion times and like you run into him at Walmart, less interesting.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah. No, believe me, it's always loud. It's always fun. But yeah, no.
Yeah, and that's one of those things too, is like seeing an act in their prime versus seeing them post prime. Well, it's not always better to see them in their prime, but I'd say usually it is. I actually am very happy. One of my favorite concerts I ever saw. I'm a massive Tom Petty fan, and so
that's one I regret never being able to see.
Well, and to that point, when I lived in Eastern Washington, I had a chance to go up and see him play in Spokane, Washington, and it was, I believe, his final tour. I mean, I think he kind of, the story behind his death is he started doing another tour. I think it was the tour before that. So it was his final full tour that he was able to complete. And it was a great show. He brought out Stevie Nicks. That was awesome. I mean, can't ask for something better than that. That was great. And he absolutely, I don't know. I never saw him in his prime. I wish I had, but that was almost, I imagine, better. For example, like I saw, that's a terrible example because they broke up a few years later, but like White Stripes, I saw them like right at the height of their popularity, and that was fun. But I mean, obviously they're disbanded now, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like I would prefer to see a band in their prime, unless it's one of those acts that's been around for 30, 40 years and continued to produce good music. And that's the key, because not every musical act out there can do that.
Right. No. So I have a Stevie Nicks story that we can get to, but Donnie Boy McCoy Collects actually has a comic book question.
Ooh, is this over on IG?
It is.
Okay, I don't have the IG chat up, so you got to be my ears into that world.
Over on the IG, I actually have a question. What's the best way to estimate the value of an original published art page of Spider-Man, or who would I talk to? And we can answer that question, but should we answer that question now, or should I tell my Stevie Nicks story?
I think IG viewers are fickle, so I think we should answer their question now.
That question. The simplest answer is to go to a website called comicartfans.com. Comic Art Fans is one of the biggest databases of original comic art, and find comps. So I don't know what page you have, what issue you have, but find things similar on there and see what they're going for. That would be the easiest thing to do. The other thing you could do is reach out to an art rep for whoever the artist is. So, for instance, if it's a John Romita, junior or senior, you would reach out to a guy named Spencer Beck at the Artist Choice. Okay, I lost Bronze, so I'll keep answering the question. His camera must have freaked out. So yeah, go to the Artist Choice. Like, you could go to the Artist Choice if it's a Romita page, or if it's somebody else, find their art dealer and talk to them about what they charge for similar pages. Especially if you're just doing it for insurance purposes. If you're trying to price the page to sell it, you might be better off just throwing it in an auction and seeing what you can do. But I would reach out to Comic Art Fans, and then if it is a Romita, which you say it is, I would reach out to a guy named Spencer Beck at the Artist Choice and see if he can point you in a direction. Spencer is the rep, by the way, for the Romitas. So
nice. Great place to ask that question, actually.
I have hold on. I'd have to find it. I have a Romita Spider-Man page over here.
So I accidentally backed over. Was it Romita Jr. or Senior?
It just says John Romita.
Okay.
No, that ain't it.
I have a John Romita Jr. Published cover prelim, which is fun. This is by far the most famous artist I have a original piece from. That's cool, John.
Yeah, John, I can't see the Foo Fighters without Taylor Hawkins. It's going to be a thing for me. As much as I desperately want to see them, because I'm friends with Josh Freese, I am not sure that emotionally I would be able to handle seeing them without Taylor. Okay, out of all of the comic tropes out there, which one do you hate the most? Or are sick of seeing the most, and why?
I have an answer for that.
Oh, Donnie says it's senior. Then Donnie, you definitely need to reach out to Spencer Beck.
There you go.
Theartistschoice.com.
Pastor Michael, my answer for that is I am tired of we're both heroes that showed up on the scene to attack the villain that caused this thing. So clearly we must fight, thinking the other one did it, and then eventually team up and take on the bad guy. I've seen that too many times. It's the most obvious, like, high level one I can think of.
My Romita page is not where I thought it was. It must be in my other room. Yeah, the comic trope I'm most tired of is thinking that by putting 67 words in the title, it's going to make your book more interesting. That's the trope I'm tired of. I don't care that something is killing the children, or this is the furthest place from here, or, you know, what is the nice house on the last house on the left of the lake, or whatever. This old house, last house on the left by the lake, whatever the hell that book is called.
See, it's funny. Some of these feeling gets a pass from me.
Some of them do.
Yeah.
Like, again, I use Something is Killing the Children as an example, but I think that that's a fine title.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think The Last House on the Lake is a bad title. It's just long.
The Last House on the Lake would be a better title than the nice house on the lake.
Whatever.
House on the Lake would be fine. It'd be shorter.
How about House Hunters International, the comic book? Like, it doesn't matter to me.
By the way, I just read Nice House on the Lake, like the first volume of it. I know I'm way behind. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good book. I just think the title's too long.
Yeah.
Again, long titles turn me off as much as no title.
Mine is over-sexualization of women and guys, armored head to toe, women equal boob windows.
So, okay. Real quick, back to Donnie's question about art. Donnie, on Fridays, except for this Friday, every Friday at 7:00 Eastern here on The Experience, we have an original art show with Nick Barucci from Dynamite and Dynamic Forces. He's a big art collector. Spencer Beck, who I just recommended, is a frequent collaborator on that show, as well as Bill Cox of Comic Art Fans. Again, those guys are the experts when it comes to the Romita stuff. I've got my John Romita Jr. stuff. I've got my John Romita Sr. stuff. It's never going to be for sale again, so I don't really track pricing, but yours, reaching out to them would be your best bet.
So real fast, I gotta close this.
Women is a good answer. I like that answer.
Oh, sorry. I was going to go back and close this loop with John. John, I have to point this out. So my wife's first concert, she went to go see Foo Fighters and Weezer. And won't get into super big details on this, but she had backstage passes. And Dave Grohl apparently not as nice as people say he is, at least not in the moment after a show. As is the capsule review.
I will say this, that depending on when that show was, I've known Dave off and on since 1997. Like, we've met a few times, we've collaborated once, in as much as, like, he was brought in to work with an artist that I was also working with in a much lesser capacity.
Yeah.
right? Like he came in to like work on the record, and I was go get coffee guy. Like, just understand that. And I think it's true that he's not as nice as people say he is, but I also haven't met him since he like had kids.
Oh, fair. 2005, apparently, by the way.
Yeah, no, that was I wasn't around then.
Well, and you know what? I'm also the first one to say that any celebrity, depending on when and where you meet them, man, we all have bad days. We all have we all have bad times too. And for all I know, every time that he gets off stage, maybe the worst time in the world to talk to him. I don't know.
Right. Here's one. Do you have a bad comic creator interaction story?
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad. So I don't. I hesitate to say bad. The first one that jumps to mind. Mm-hmm. I went to a Wizard World Con, which is I think no longer around. I think it's kind of been rolled.
They're Fan Expo now.
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit different show because it was much more celebrity focused then than it is now. It's still a celebrity focused show, but it's gotten closer. This was like 2/3 celebrity autograph signing photo op thing, and now it was like 1/3 comic creators. And this was in Portland, so a lot of the Portland creators just kind of go to all of those shows because it's easy enough for them to get there. So I was excited to meet some people. I was really excited to meet Bob Camp. That was really fun. Had a great time meeting him. Got him to sign his cover he did for G.I. Joe 11. That was a fun moment for me. Legendary cartoonist. If you guys aren't familiar, you should look him up. He's really, really cool guy. Got to meet Michael Golden. If you don't, co-creator of Rogue, legendary artist. Arthur Sidem. That was interesting. A lot of people have had bad interactions with Arthur Sidem. I had a fantastic interaction with him. This was a long time ago. Jamie Tyndall, a few other people. The one that I had a weird interaction with was, and I actually am a little unsure on how his last name is correctly pronounced. I've always heard Kurt Busiek. I don't know if that's correct or not. Busiek, whatever. Thunderbolts, legendary Marvel writer, right? He had a really interesting experience with me because he had a booth. If I'm not mistaken, he was sitting next to Mark Waid, and they were kind of chatting. There was nobody within 20 feet of us trying to interact with them. I was nervous. It was my first time ever meeting like a comic book creator that was not just doing like a local comic book shop signing kind of a thing. And this was probably about 2005 or something. I think it was a long time ago. So I walk up, I wait for them to have a break in their conversation because I'm ultra polite, especially back then, a lot more polite than I'd be now. And Kurt had a jar up on front, and he was asking for donations, either canned food or money for autographs. He was doing donations, which is really cool, by the way. I think that's a really fun way to do, your autograph signature fee. And so I had a copy, my personal copy I'd had since I bought it, at the comic book shop the month it came out, of Thunderbolts #1, because I really enjoyed the early Thunderbolt stuff. It was a very formative series for me. That was like the first comic book I read from a major publisher that had like a real fun twist, that was kind of fun. I just said, hey, I love the story. I was wondering if you could sign this. And he had like no reaction, no words. Again, I know he was having a conversation. I waited for a good break in the conversation. There was nobody around. And I was a fan coming up, I think being polite, happy, excited, and got nothing back in terms of energy. That was a weird one, man. Like I kind of expected like, oh, thanks, or something, because he explained the process for, I can't remember if it was like, donate $5 for an autograph or something like that. And I think I put in like 5 or 10, and I said, I just wanted you to sign this. I didn't, it didn't seem like a guy who was getting him to sign it so I could go get it graded or anything. I didn't have a witness with me. It wasn't anything like that. Right. So it's kind of weird.
So I have two. One is a good story now that was a bad story when it happened. And the other one is just one that I will never let go. So one is me being petty. The first one is first time I met Neil Adams. He was having a bad day, and he had gotten into an argument with the person in front of me in line. And I don't even think the argument was about anything important. I think it was about like whether or not the Neil deGrasse Tyson Cosmos was as good as the Carl Sagan Cosmos.
Which
like,
is not.
And that was Neil's contention. But it was this other guy was like, no, it's just as good. It's just more modernized. And Neil was like, I'm not signing your crap now, basically. And his wife or somebody was like, no, you have to. They paid. And so he signed it. And then he comes up to me. He goes, how do you feel about Cosmos? And I go, makes my head hurt. And he goes, why? I go, because I can't keep up with either of them. I have to watch the show at like a quarter speed. And he laughs and signs a book and goes, well, okay then. But he wouldn't really talk to me about comic books at all. I tried to ask him a question. He wouldn't talk to me. Turns out, 3 or 4 years later, I met him again and I told him the story. He goes, oh, that was real funny. That guy you thought I was fighting with, it's actually like a good friend. Like he was just busting my balls, but it scared the crap out of you. So you couldn't really articulate what was happening, huh? I go, no. He's like, well, I'll answer all your questions now. And we talked for like 2.5 hours.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good story. Started off. The other one is there is a well-known and still working Marvel cover artist. I'm not going to name his name, but he had gotten burned.
Okay, everybody, we have to guess.
He had gotten burned by retailers and dealers coming and asking him to sign 50 or 60 copies of things. And so he put up a sign. If you have a pro badge, I won't sign autographs for you. If you have a vendor badge, I won't sign autographs for you. Here's my information if you'd like to set up a private signing. So I had one of this artist's books. It's not Art Adams.
He's a super nice guy.
I have nothing but amazing things to say about Arthur Adams and his wife. Both incredible artists. But so I went up to this person. I had one copy of a book they had done. And I said, hi, I would like an autograph. And he goes, I need to see your badge. And I go, why? He goes, because of the rules. And I go, what difference does it make if I'm getting a book signed for me? And he goes, because those are the rules. I go, so you want me to email you and set up a private signing so you can sign one damn copy of one book? Yep. I go, I tell you what. And I set the book down and I walked away. I go, I don't even want to read your fucking book anymore. And that was the last time we ever interacted.
So you're walking away. Does he have any response trailing after you, or
don't care? Didn't pay attention.
Just wondering.
But I spoke to the. It's not John Byrne. I spoke to the convention promoters, and that person has not been invited back to one of their conventions since. But they're a very popular Marvel cover artist.
It's a broad field, unfortunately, so I can't help with the guesses, but I'm curious.
Well, that's kind of the point, right, of leaving it vague.
I know, but it's more fun to guess than it is to hear the story even.
It's true. You can keep guessing. I doubt anybody will get to it.
Oh, I mean, that's almost too easy because it's just you throw a giant shotgun of answers at it and you'll hit it.
No.
But
I mean, maybe people have seen this sign at his booth at other conventions.
Yeah.
Not Tim Bradstreet.
He said very popular, which I would not equate that right now with being very popular. I would go like J. Scott Campbell, or I would go like, I mean, they're talking about very popular.
No.
I know. Ken Lashley.
Nope.
Kyle Hotz.
Nope.
Obviously it's a man, so that narrows it down somewhat.
And I will say this, their popularity may have waned in the intervening years.
That's fair.
But
I don't know why I care so much about this.
2000. It's not Todd. This would have been 2016, 17.
Okay. So yeah, so it could have been somebody who was bigger back then. Oh, that's a good guess, David Mack.
Nope. They're still working. I mean,
hey, so speaking of which, you know who I was thinking about? I haven't seen stuff from in a long time, and I'm wondering why. And I feel like either you or somebody in chat might know.
it's not Rob or Todd.
What about what's happened to Andy Kubert? How come we're not seeing any Andy Kubert art out there? Am I missing it? Is it out there?
School?
What?
Isn't he basically just retired and running the school?
But why, man? Like, I want to see at least some covers from him.
Oh no, I think that still happens, but he's primarily running the school these days.
I've only seen stuff from Adam recently, which, don't get me wrong, I really like. I enjoy, I think, every Kubert out there. Pretty sure. Don't want to make too broad of a statement because there's a lot of them. But I really enjoy Adam as well. But Andy, I was looking through some old, I was rebagging and boarding some stuff, and I was looking through some old books, and I'm like, man, I'm super nostalgic for that late 90s Wolverine, X-Men, and he did a lot of other stuff too, of course, but that art, it's just really good. And I just, the 90s are back in so many ways. I was also thinking about J. Scott Campbell, who I just mentioned a minute ago. And I lamented the fact the other day that J. Scott Campbell is only a cover artist, and he's just basically doing these commissions for covers that are pretty unfortunately the same. And and so it's one of those things where I'm really sad that we don't get to see interiors from somebody like J. Scott Campbell anymore. Like, and I know not everybody's cup of tea. I get it. I do. I miss it though.
Emma Kubert is the best Kubert.
She's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually when I got to her, I was like, okay, there's probably even one or two more that I don't know, and I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus but yeah. And don't get me wrong, the school is awesome. I'm glad they're doing that. Any artist that is teaching art out there, I applaud them, because that's how we're going to get the next generation of artists. Not the only way, of course, but it's one of the best ways to get more artists trained in those kinds of ways and doing comic books. So
okay. What were Psycho Phil had a question.
Okay.
Speaking of music and comics, are the band-themed graphic novels from Z2 any good? I have the Anthrax book with the Judge Dredd cover, but it's still sealed.
You're asking the wrong guy. Not my genre.
I can tell you the ones that I've read are very good.
Nice.
They are very specific to the creative teams and the artists that they're about, right? So like, if you're not into, say, I have some of their Charlie Bird Parker books that they've done, Chasing the Bird, and some of those that they've put out with Dave Chisholm, who I really like. I'm into Charlie Parker. I'm into that kind of jazz era stuff. So I like those books. If you're not into that kind of stuff, don't get those books. Get the Anthrax and some of the other stuff that they've done. The early books that they did, where it was a fictional story, a fully fictitious story, with an artist soundtrack, are a little hit or miss. But by and large, if you like the artist, you'll like the book.
Okay.
Donnie Boy over on Instagram goes, okay, so what are one of your best interactions with an artist?
Ooh, so that's actually where I was actually going to come back to this. I'm very glad you brought that up over there on Instagram. Thank you. That's what I was going to say is it's funny because some people might listen to my story about a bad interaction. And by the way, I'm using bad loosely.
Right.
At worst, it was a neutral interaction.
Stellar interaction.
Yeah. It just wasn't, it was one of those meet your hero moments where I had been like, I didn't expect him to go off and start telling me about the story or anything. I just wanted to walk away and go, yay.
I met him.
Yeah, that's all. And it didn't happen. And that's fine. That's fine. So my point was really going to be to spin it the other way. Like I mentioned, I alluded to the fact that I had a good interaction with Arthur Sidem. And I know several people personally who have not had good interactions with him. And that's too bad. It really is. It is unfortunate. I think things have maybe changed in that regard because of some of those experiences that have happened. They're kind of with that person, and that's the kind of thing that happens, right? Is some of these creators have these terrible interactions, and it starts to build up scar tissue for them, and then unfortunately have problems. But the other way can happen too. So there's artists and creators that I've had good interactions with that are just kind of, unfortunately, I hear about them a lot. And I don't really want to say who, because I don't want people to think there's these negative interactions people have had with them, but it has happened. People have reported on it.
Like the Arthur Soydom one, though, that's a very public bad interaction.
Yeah.
So having an interaction with him is a great way to
to kind of balance the scales a little bit. And then so the one I will mention, and it's too bad because she was extremely sweet. Maybe that's even the wrong term to use. She was funny, she was witty, but very popular cover artist out there, talking about cover artists. Sozo Micah. I have had several people personally that I know meet her at conventions and say, oh, she was really cold, or she was rude, or something like that. And I do not know her well at all. And I would just wager a guess that she is not a big fan of crowds, is what I could tell. And so I saw her at kind of a nice medium size show. It was a busy day, though. It was a busy Saturday on the show. And I went up to her and I had a really cool conversation with her. You know, if you watch my stuff and you know my channel, like I do stupid stuff like a booty cover of the week, and she does a lot of like kind of voluptuous art. So I mentioned that one of her Catwoman covers had been on that, you know, and I kind of did it almost on purpose, right? Like, here's this dumb thing that you're going to remember now because no one else is going to tell you about that. And she was like, what? Oh, that's crazy. You know, and she's like, I'm more of a leg person myself, you know? So we had this cool conversation, and I just walked away having this great interaction. She signed a bunch of stickers for me. I did some for giveaways and stuff like that. It was really fun. But I contrast that with the stories I've heard from a couple other people where it was just this bad interaction. I think sometimes it's kind of like my interaction with Kurt Busiek. You go up and you have to almost make it happen. Like, you have to put out the energy that you want to receive in some regards. But also, my biggest advice for that is to be respectful, because look, no matter how nice you are, how well-intentioned you are, how quirky or unique you are, any of those things, you're talking to somebody who has had interactions with a lot of nerds, you know, people that aren't wearing deodorant, or people that aren't socially adept, or they've had all these, you know, so you never know what kind of interaction you're going to have with people.
And they've maybe had hundreds of interactions that day. Like,
yeah, exactly. And maybe 100 of those were terrible, you know, for all we know. Right. People were mad because they had to wait in a long line, and some of that's not their fault, right? Some of that could be the way the cons run. Some of it could be the line management, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So my best interactions are usually after con or outside of con interactions with creators. But my best in convention interaction is I had taken a friend. Well, I don't know if I'd really taken a friend, but some friends of mine had come to C2E2 one year, and it was their first C2E2. And they were overwhelmed, to say the least, with the number of people. And one of them, this was at the beginning of Gail Simone's run on Birds of Prey, when it was the best book DC was putting out.
I love that run.
And my friend was like, I want to meet Gail Simone, but I'm scared to go up. So we go over to Gail Simone, and my friend absolutely fangirls. Just can't even. And Gail's looking at him weird, and I'm like, I go, this is his first con. It's a big con, and he's meeting his favorite writer. He cannot handle it. And Gail comes out from around the table and like talks to my friend and like chills out. What's up, Tom? Thank you for being in.
Dude, thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yeah, we really do. But comes out from around the table and starts talking to him and calms him down, signs his books, and still to this day, when I run into her and I mention this interaction, she remembers it. So that's
cool.
But cool. Outside of the convention, one of the things we used to do at C2E2 all the time was we would get a table in the lobby of the Hyatt, which is the on-site hotel. and we would play Super Fight in the lobby. And so one day we're playing Super Fight, and we managed to somehow Batman versus Superman. Like, just ridiculous. Should have never happened that way, but it did. And here comes Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. Yeah. And so I flag him down because I know Greg a little bit. I've met him a couple of times. And we had talked earlier that day because I had him sign some stuff for me. And I flag him down and I go, who would win? And they kind of look at each other, and Scott turns and goes, whoever the hell I choose, I'm writing them. And they just walk away. And I'm going, that is the single coolest move you can ever pull at a comic book convention, right? Like, to just be like, I get to pick the answer to the age-old question because I'm writing them. Okay. All right.
But did you do the shower thought comeback you should have done? That's why I asked you.
No, I just was like, you know what? I see your big, BDI over there, like your BD, I see it. So that was a fun one. And
big running
into Scotty Young at a bar in Lincoln Park in Chicago.
That's
like
cool.
At a drink and draw before anybody. You've done good if Kyle has no response. It's true. Before any of the Marble Baby stuff had happened. Like, they were just starting to come out, and he really hadn't blown up yet, and he was just at this drink and draw.
I wish it kind of never had, if I'm being honest. And I don't mean to hate on somebody's. I know a lot of people love the baby variant stuff, but don't get me wrong, it's very well done. I wish we could see more of Scotty Young's art outside. I know that some of that's more is happening, it feels like now than
right.
It has over the last few years, but I hope we keep that ball rolling because I'd love to see more of his more traditional art, we'll call it, I guess. Along that same vein, before, because we're going to wrap up right on time because Kyle's got weather, he needs to get home. I will throw out there another best and worst kind of interaction. Another best, Todd McFarlane, absolute gentleman, professional. I had the privilege of meeting him at a more private type of event and signing than traditionally most people would be able to. But there was still a line, and because of my other responsibilities I had at that event, I actually showed up kind of late and kind of was a dick and kind of got into the part of the line after it closed because I flew a long way with some important stuff to me that I wanted him to sign, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer unless he told me no himself.
Right.
And I snuck into a line, and he knew it happened. He was totally cool with it. He'd been signing for hours, let me in at the last one, and had a cool conversation with me. Talked about all kinds of stuff, including one of the things I had him sign was my copy of the Spawn DVD. Right before that, I had him sign Spawn #1, and he's like, I must have signed 1 million of these, and there's like 7 million printed, and I must have signed 1 million of them. And then I handed him the Spawn DVD, and he was like, I don't think I've ever signed one of these, which was kind of cool. And this was a long time ago, guys.
Right.
And then just kind of the same convention, same type of weird little private event thing. Worst celebrity interaction I ever had. Same deal. Gina Carano.
Why am I not surprised?
Why are you not surprised by that? Exactly. So
I'll end with a best and worst. Best, meeting Rey Mysterio.
That's cool.
Yeah, but only realizing that you bought the slice of pizza that he wanted, and it was the last slice of pizza at the little pizza cart.
That's perfect.
Convention. I'm like, you know what? If you 619 me, you can have it. But that was a good one because he was very chill about it, and I got to meet him. And he's Johnny TV now. He was Johnny Mundo at the time, when they were both in Lucha Underground. John Morrison. Getting to meet both of them at C22 is the best. A worst would be the time we had to remove a legendary Marvel letterer. He wasn't an inker and he wasn't a writer, but he was one of those guys.
He wasn't an inker. I love that description.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't like an artist. He wasn't a writer. He was either an inker or a letterer or a colorer or something.
Okay.
For being inappropriate with convention staff.
Oh, boy.
During the height of the Me Too movement, we had to escort him out. That one was
Don't like
super.
to hear that.
Yeah. But he did sign my first appearance of a first appearance book that I had for him to sign, along with George Perez and Marv Wolfman that day. So, like, bad experience, but it worked out all right.
I will say two more that come to mind real fast because we're wrapping out time. There'd be not even long stories at all. Shout out to Brian Michael Bendis, who noticed that I recognized him as we're walking through a crowd. He had left the last day to go spend some time with his family, and he made eye contact. He's like, "Did you need something?" He's like, "Yeah, I was hoping to get something to sign from you, and you left your booth, but you're with your family. I don't want to bug you." And he's like, "No, get it out, sign it. You want a picture?" He was super awesome. I believe it was his daughter that he was with, and he was, I profusely thanked him. He was super nice about that too. Also, huge shout out to David F. Walker. If you ever get a chance to go up and meet him at a show, he is the man.
David Walker's so cool.
Yeah, very cool guy. So, yeah, good conversation, guys.
I'll add another great one. If you ever get a chance to meet Art Balthazar.
Okay.
So I was a little gun shy about meeting him. I was a big fan of Itty Bitty Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his frequent collaborators is a friend of mine, introduced me to him. And I go, "Hi, I don't want to bother you. I'm just a huge fan." And he goes, "It's cool. Bother me all you want. I'm just about to go upstairs and watch the fights." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go watch the fights." And so we talked for 20 minutes about professional wrestling. And so now whenever I come up to him, I don't think he remembers my name. He just calls me sir. He calls everybody sir. But he goes, "Sir, did you see the AEW the other night?" Like, and he'll ask me about wrestling and then ask me about fried chicken because we both share a love for meat cooked over fire.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
Art
and Franco, all the "oh yeah" guys, totally meet them.
I guess there's just a few. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. A few people that have just donated things for the Heroes for Heroes cause, and how quickly they agreed to do it, how awesome they were about it. Art Adams is one of them. Ron Garney is another one of them that was really, Ron Garney didn't even let me finish my sentence, and he handed over an original piece for the charity. Ivan Tao. There's so many generous and nice people out there in this community on the fan side and on the creator side. So I guess that's the message for the day, folks. Just go out there and be positive in the community and see what kind of, comic karma you can put out there in the universe. See how it comes back to you.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks for hanging with us when we blew off the topic. Thank you to Donnie Boy McCoy Collects. Glad you were able to make it. Just know that we're not on Instagram all that often, man. Check us out on YouTube, _EXP. It's the same as our Instagram over on YouTube. We're there 6 nights a week with a live original programming. We're only on Instagram a couple of nights. So head over there. And if you're watching and you don't already follow us or aren't already subscribed on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We have new content that we're keeping under wraps until we reach a certain threshold of new subscribers. So please, please, please hit that button. And then, Jay has some great comments or some links over there for you. bit.ly/Devil's Advocates if you want to come up with a show topic. Bronze and I will be back on Saturday.
Yes. Tune back in on Saturday. We're going to be doing a special show. If you liked this show, it might be a little similar. We might have a few little topic starters basically for us to go over. And what time are we're going on at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern?
10 to midnight Eastern, 7 to 9 Pacific.
Cool.
And we will be touching on a lot of the viewer mailbag stuff. A lot of the stuff y'all have suggested that maybe isn't a full episode for us. Maybe because we agree too much or, we just don't know enough about it. But we're going to be touching on a lot of the stuff y'all have sent to us for us to get in on. And we will be glad to talk. We'll be excited to talk to you about it on Saturday from 10 to midnight as part of the EXP Expo. Watch the EXP social media, sign up for the mailing list, all of those things to find out what's happening. And Psycho Phil, thank you for saying that. Sometimes we have to cover negative stuff like we did with CGC and like we did with AI. We always want to leave you with a positive note or a note of action, things you can do to make a positive impact or to
Yeah.
have this impact you in a positive way. So
Drama
we
free.
appreciate you, man. Yeah. We want to be drama free, also sucker free. So,
Love
you
it.
know,
Hey,
we will
Kyle, be
see.
safe on your way home tonight, man. Everybody out
We
there
will
dealing with weather, be safe.
Hopefully the freezing rain is just barely starting. So it'll be much more of a drive slow kind of
Yeah.
situation, but not a turn around and go back to the office and sleep in your chair kind of situation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We will see everybody on Saturday, if not before. Remember, tune in for all of our shows tomorrow. We've got the news with Dan Wickline in the morning. Jay and Jen are going to be reviewing some books. I might pop in as well, reviewing some books tomorrow on Minute to Skim It. Mint Hunter will be here after that. And then following him, Kicking It with Henri, the live sales show with Henri Compen, Honest Henri from Chicago. We'll be doing a comic book live sale tomorrow, starting from 9 to 11 Eastern or 10 to midnight Eastern. I forget.
He's a great seller, by the way, guys. Yeah, he shipped me a book, did an awesome job shipping it, safe and sound.
Super high energy, super high quality, good guy. And then more shows all week. So we'll see everybody next time. Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.